The time is now, episode 318. What do you do when you know that you can't keep going at the same pace? But with the major shifts unfolding in our world today, you also know that you can't afford to fall behind. So, what do you do when slowing down feels dangerous and pushing through feels unsustainable? That tension is what so many solopreneurs are living in right now. And today, I want to show you a different way through it. Welcome to The Time Is Now, the podcast for mission-driven solopreneurs ready to take action and go from invisible to in demand. I am your host, Emel Deregi. My mission is to help you cut through the noise, get crystal clear on your strategy, and position yourself as the go-to expert in your field. But this podcast isn't just about marketing. It's also about building your resilience and staying ahead of the shifts in our world so you can be the leader and change maker you truly are. This is your time to create more growth, alignment, and impact in your business. In my previous episode 360, I promised I would come back and share some of the behind the scenes of what I put in place to keep my business running while taking a pause from the podcast, but also my newsletter. But before I do that, I want to name what many of you might be feeling right now. You might feel tired, but still driven, successful, but unsettled, capable, but unsure how long you can keep going this way. And all of this can be deeply confusing. Whether your business is doing great right now or you're facing real challenges, the dominant message in our society is usually the same. That you should push through, that you should keep going and achieving the next big thing, and that slowing down means falling behind. But I'm happy to see that lately I'm also seeing something shift, not just at an individual level, but also collectively. At the time of this recording, there is actually a major buzz going on around some of the big names in the online marketing world. You might have heard of leaders in the online space like Amy Porterfield, who announced that she is discontinuing a long-standing multi-million-dollar signature program. Or like Jenna Kutcher, who decided to stop her podcast. And what I want to highlight is something important here. They both said that they did not decide to make this pivot because online courses no longer work or that podcasting is dead. Their businesses are still generating millions. But both of them shared that they are doing this because they need to create the space to go inwards. These two leaders really played a key role in my early journey and are a true inspiration for how they have influenced the online marketing world for over a decade now. And that is why I truly admire the courage that it took them to make these major decisions, even with the risk of disrupting their image. Although, honestly, I think it just reinforces it. But I think they are clearly seeing that it is time to take a step back and reflect on what the upcoming years should be about. Just like many of us, they need a space to pause, space to reflect, space to figure out how they want to show up next. And what really strikes me and honestly feels quite fascinating is that all of this is happening shortly after I published episode 316, where I shared why I chose to pause the podcast and how I was coming back with a new season of the show. For me, this is a strong confirmation that what we're experiencing isn't isolated to a few individuals or even to the online marketing world. There is a major and a broader energetic shift happening globally. And as citizens and leaders, we need to pay attention to it. We are navigating economic uncertainty, rapid technological shifts, especially with AI, and deeper disruptions in our society and democracy. There is a real energetic shift in our whole planet going on right now. And in these circumstances, sometimes leadership is not about entering a race, but making the space to figure out how to move through what's changing instead of just being reactive to it. But it's also about making the space without giving up on everything that we've built, and also having the courage to question things, even when they're still working. As I shared in more details in episode 316, a little over a year ago, I made the decision to pause the podcast for a while. I did that to focus on my health challenges, but also to create the space to listen more deeply to what my soul was calling me towards, something I honestly could not ignore anymore. And I want to be honest with you. This process was very intentional, but it was also so uncomfortable. And there were some days I would even say truly painful. Creating space doesn't always bring clarity right away. Sometimes it starts by bringing a lot of discomfort. However, deciding to create more space for myself never meant giving up on my business, and quite the opposite. It meant choosing to be more intentional about how I lead, how I show up, and how I make decisions. So, what I want to do now is walk you through what I actually put in place behind the scenes, as I promised. First, on a personal level, then on a business level. So let's start on the personal side. One of the most important things I did during this time was to actively invest in my health and my well-being. That meant for me taking my health challenges very seriously, seeking medical support, allowing myself to be supported instead of trying to push through and also minimize what my body was signaling. But sometimes it also meant doing a lot of research and questioning, and even, I would say, challenging the medical support I was receiving when it wasn't giving me the answers I really needed. And trust me, this was not an easy process. But you know what? I'm not going to go into details there because otherwise I'll never get to the bottom of this podcast. But I have to say that was one of the biggest challenges also, to figure out the medical support I needed. But I also used therapeutical healing and coaching support to process what was coming up, to reflect honestly and reconnect with what truly mattered to me. Because when your body is asking you to slow down, ignoring it, it does not make you stronger. It just delays the lesson. And oh dear, I certainly learned a lot through this process. I can honestly say that I'm actually stronger and a different person as a result of this journey. This experience changed me, it deepened me, and it reshaped how I see myself, my work, and my own leadership. This journey also opened up questions that I still don't have all the answers to, but I'm trusting that these answers will come as I continue to focus on my growth. The second pillar on a personal level was community. I intentionally searched and chose to spend more time in smaller, safer spaces where I could think outside of my usual bubble. I actually want to use this opportunity to give a big shout out to the Toastmasters community in Bangkok called Empower, where I met amazing, wonderful people. And I also want to give a big shout out to the Lionesses of Siam and its founder, Remy. So if you're listening, big hugs to all of you. These were spaces where I could process my thoughts, test my ideas, listen to different perspectives, support the community with my expertise, while being authentic and being able to open up on my own challenges too. So this was really precious for me. The third action I implemented on a personal level was to be intentional about how I stayed informed and which actions I needed to take. Instead of constantly consuming all type of news and social media, I chose to follow a few trustworthy sources to research more deeply what I cared about and to engage with what was happening in the world in a conscious way. That also meant taking action where it was possible, like donating to the causes I believed in, following situations on the ground as much as possible, because it was not always possible, bringing awareness to the people around me, and also staying connected with the activists I wanted to support, especially in Gaza, a place where a genocide has been unfolding right before our eyes and supported by Western powers in total impunity. This triggered me so much. But for me, this journey was also about finding the balance between being awake while still regulating my nervous system. And it was not an easy balance to achieve. I must admit, it actually required a lot of inner work. But tuning out because of the overwhelming news around the world was not an option for me. Finally, I spent a lot of time reading and learning, especially around the topics of leadership, innovation, activism, and community building. I found myself drawn to these topics because deep down, I truly feel that we are entering a time that calls for a new kind of leadership. We can't keep doing things like we've always done. Things need to change. And if I want to contribute, make a difference, and stay relevant in the future, I know that I have to elevate my own understanding, my own perspectives, and my own leadership skills. And honestly, I don't know yet exactly how all of this learning will show up beyond my business, but I do feel and know very clearly that these topics are going to be critical in my future. So as you can see, I kept myself quite active while also making sure to recover and creating the space to honestly just be. So some days were really, really challenging, but overall, I have to say that I am so grateful that I went through this process because I learned so much and I know I will continue to grow from this. But as I mentioned earlier, this is not all I did. While I was creating more space for myself to explore, I was also very intentional about putting strategic actions in place to keep my business running. So let me walk you through some of the key actions I implemented on the business side during this time. In fact, slowing down did not mean letting things just run on autopilot. It meant being more strategic, more focused, and also more honest about what was really working for me and what was not working. One of the first things I focused on was sharpening my messaging. I asked myself where my message was resonating the most and where was it diluted, especially as I had rebranded my business in 2023. So this helped me go even deeper into my positioning, which is supporting mission-driven solopreneurs to go from invisible to in demand. This really allowed me to reaffirm that one of my biggest strengths is helping clients position themselves as the go-to expert in their field. While I continue to serve clients through my fully integrated services, I stopped running product launches and instead I decided to focus on promoting single strategy sessions that were much more easy to say yes to. And although I paused my newsletter as well, I continued to share my free resources to provide value to my existing audience while still growing my email list. In fact, if you are part of my email list and my Resources, you might have noticed that most of my free resources are designed with an email sequence that helps subscribers reflect on their needs and marketing strategies, which in some cases has actually led to them reaching out to me to work with me. The second action I took was focusing on visibility strategies that actually worked for me. In fact, while I slowed down, I did not stop being visible, but I became more intentional about where and when and how I showed up. For me, that meant leaning more into speaking for various communities and platforms that actually attracted my ideal clients, but also supported my brand positioning. In the second half of the year alone, I spoke at 12 different events in just 7 months. Because I know from my experience that this is where trust is built most naturally for me and where meaningful conversations, but also conversions happen. This was a powerful reminder that visibility doesn't have to be everywhere, but it has to be aligned and strategically defined. Another major focus on the business side was learning and experimenting with AI. Not from a place of hype, because I have to say it's become very fashionable, but for me, it was really to come from a place of responsibility. I wanted to understand how these tools could support my clients, my creativity, and my team. For instance, I enrolled my online business manager in an AI training with me so we could revisit our workflows together and identify where AI could genuinely support us rather than adding more complexity into the business. I also created custom GPTs and personal AI assistants for different tasks, including preparing podcast episodes like this one. Additionally, I changed my podcast editing process to an AI-based solution using Riverside. This allowed me to upgrade the show and offer this podcast not only in audio format, but now on video as well. And by the way, if you're watching me right now, hi there. Drop me a comment right below this video. I'd love to say hi to you. And if you haven't discovered the video version of this podcast yet, and you're curious to see me while I'm recording this episode, then you can find it on Spotify and YouTube. You can search for it with The Time Is Now and my first name Amel, or you'll find all the links that you need on the show notes of this episode on thetimeisnow.biz/318. Additionally, I developed AI-based lead magnets as well. And this experiment already led me to sell strategy sessions and attract clients, which is amazing. And while there is still some refinements I think that are needed, I can see that the potential is really promising. In fact, one of my custom GPTs led into something that I'm really, really excited about. I named this one Nina, the Niche Navigator. I trained Nina on my 3-piece framework, and I designed it to help you gain clarity on your positioning when things feel messy or uncertain. It guides you through the right questions to help you reconnect with what makes your work unique, relevant, and aligned, especially in times of change. So if you're in a season where you are questioning your niche, your message, or how you want to show up next, then I truly believe this can be a powerful starting point for you. If you'd like to test and try out Nina, then make sure to go to the show notes of this episode and download this GPT on thetimeisnow.biz/318. Now, the fourth area of adjustments in my business was my social media. Because the podcast was paused, I also had to rethink my social media and content strategy. Until then, most of my content was built around the podcasts and the episodes, but also around my launches and the programs that I was pushing. So my team and I needed to make some real adjustments here. We focused the messaging even more strongly on my positioning. We shared selectively, but also honestly about the transition I was going through. And we leaned heavily on repurposing content from over 300 past podcast episodes. This really reminded me that you don't always need to create more. Sometimes you simply need to use what you already have more intentionally. And the final area of adjustment in my business was fixing some of the backend aspects. My online business manager and I did a full audit of the systems that I have in place to run the operations of my business. So we reviewed every tool, platform, and subscription that I was using and asked some very honest questions like, what is essential? What is no longer needed? And what needs to be replaced? Economic uncertainty can be really uncomfortable. And I had gone through it too as I was slowing down. But it is also a powerful opportunity to clean up the back end of your business, reduce unnecessary costs, and also simplify your operations. I believe this has been a key decision in my business because it really allowed me to still make profit, although my revenue had slowed down, because I slowed my activities around lead generation and sales. So all of these actions together made one thing so clear to me. Creating space does not mean giving up on your business. It means leading it more intentionally. Now, what does all of this mean for you? And what can you apply from what I shared with you? I know one thing for sure. We all have different contexts, different circumstances, different responsibilities and realities. So you might not be able to apply exactly what I did and shared with you today. Some parts might actually not feel relevant to you at all. And that's totally okay. What I wanted to give you here is not a model to copy, but a framework to think with. And that is why I designed 4 steps to help you assess and adjust your own strategies, whatever season you're in right now, so you can create the space you need while still running your business intentionally. So let me walk you through them. First step, listen and invest in the support you need. Listen to your body, listen to your energy, listen to your intuition, listen to the signals you might have been ignoring. Listen to understand what you truly need right now to show up in your full potential. And then investing in the right support. Medical, therapeutical, coaching, educational, tools, or community, whatever helps you stay grounded and make clear decisions while creating the space you need. Here's the thing. Support is not a luxury. It's building the key infrastructure for your business to be sustainable. Now, the second step. Give yourself permission to explore with a beginner's mindset. This might feel like starting from scratch, but it's really not. A beginner's mindset allows you to see beyond your usual patterns, question assumptions, and think more creatively. Especially in times of economic uncertainties and major technological shifts, staying curious and learning new skills is really not optional. It's how you remain relevant. Now, third step, assess what's working and what's no longer working. Be thorough and be honest through this process. This is the time to do the spring cleaning of your business and also your life too, by the way. So ask yourself, what is bringing you results? What is draining you? What is no longer making sense energetically, strategically, or even financially? And you can also use the simple lens that I illustrated earlier with examples, which is assess, then erase, or replace. This step alone can really create a surprising amount of clarity, but also productivity and profitability. Fourth step, choose the few strategies that you'll commit to consistently. This is the time to make strategic choices and stop doing everything, stop being everywhere, but choose the few strategies you are willing and able to commit to consistently in this season. You can build intentional visibility, intentional offers, intentional systems. And if you know me, you know how often I insist on consistency to see results. However, I also believe that consistency does not come from doing more. It comes from doing less, but doing it on purpose. So there you have it. I've shared with you in detail the behind the scenes of my pause and how it looked like, along with the 4 steps you can implement to create the space you need to shape the next iteration of your business. One that's more aligned with how you want to show up, while also staying relevant in the times we're living in. So if you're in recalibration season where you know something needs to change, but you don't want to give up on your business, know that this is exactly the work I do with my clients too. If you want support thinking through your strategy, your positioning, and your next moves with clarity and intention, I invite you to schedule an assessment call so that you can learn more about how I can support you. Find the link to schedule your free assessment session in the show notes of this episode. The time is now.biz/318. And remember, you don't have to navigate this season alone. And you don't have to choose between space and momentum. Both are possible. See you in the next episode and stay tuned to turn your challenges into great opportunities. The time is now to create more growth, alignment, and impact with your business.